Lesson 25. We continue reading from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, chapter 1, Sutra 18. Up until Sutra 17, there was a general introduction covering some of the history of yoga. The yamas and the niyamas were also covered. Some directions on creating establishing a beneficial practice, with including some directions on the space you need to create for yourself, physically but also mentally. Some dietary advices. And now the time has come to talk about asana. And it starts with Sutra 18. I proceed to describe some of the asanas accepted by the sages as fascista and yogins such as Machendra. So Svatmarama does here the same as he did at the beginning of the book. He doesn't claim credit. He doesn't take credit for what he is now going to introduce to us. Also, he indicates that not only is this not his intellectual property, he's just passing it on, but he also, by referring to Fascista, a sage, and Machendra, traditionally the first human being that learned yoga from the god, Shiva, he is in a symbolical way telling us something important is following here. This is valuable. So it's not my words, it's the words of the sages and the yogis and those who have learned it from the original source. Sutra 19, having correctly placed both soles of the feet between the thighs and the knees, one should sit balanced and straight-bodied. This is called Svastikasana. Svastikasana is what we know as Sukhasana. Sukha means easy. To meditate, you need to sit in a pose that does not cause discomfort, because any kind of discomfort distracts from your attempt to meditate, to control the mind. Swastika is interesting, however, because swastika, that is a religious symbol that you see at every Buddhist temple, not only in Korea but in Asia. And it looks like this. It's a cross. It's a cross that many people, especially European people, know this cross from the Second World War, where the Nazi Germany had appropriated the symbol and turned it 45 degrees. But it's a religious cross that I don't know exactly what it represents, but it has something to do with sattva, of course, with harmony. Svastika. So, when we meditate, we sit in Sukhasana. We do not cross the feet as indicated in Sutra 19, because the pressure at some point will become a distraction. Ideally, it's one of the exercises that follows later on. Ideally, you meditate in Padmasana, because this stimulates strongly the rise of energy from the bottom up. But most people are not comfortable in Padmasana, and even if they can do it, after a couple of minutes it becomes a distraction, because it's simply not comfortable. So we use Sukhasana for that purpose. Sutra 20, place the right ankle next to the left buttock and the left ankle next to the right buttock. This is Gomukhasana, and it resembles the face of a cow. Gomukha literally means cow face. It is often done wrong though. It is often done like this. And this doesn't do very much. If you look at the drawing, you see that the feet are actually under the buttocks. And the lower legs are parallel. So you place your lower legs parallel, and not allowing them to separate, you then sit back. Sitting like this, you're floating because the strain in the legs doesn't allow you to actually sit. So it becomes a balancing pose, which stimulates the throat chakra. And you then join the hands behind the back. And of course you do this, switching the legs also. Sutra 21. Place one foot firmly on the other thigh and the right thigh on the other foot. This is called Virasana. Virasana, Vira means hero. Virasana is an alternative meditation pose for those who are not comfortable in Sukhasana. There are people who, as in their childhood days, sit like this while playing at home on the ground. I used to sit in what we call the tailor pose. But there are many, especially girls, often sit like this playing. Boys apparently are more uncomfortable sitting like this. And if you have done this often while you are young, you're very comfortable sitting like this. And if you sit properly, which means straight, like you always do, of course, in meditation poses, because a straight spine stimulates the rise of energy, nada becomes actually very clear without effort. So you sit straight, you tuck in your chin a little bit, stretch up the back of the neck, and nada very naturally comes to you. So if you're not comfortable in Sukhasana, or you feel more comfortable in Virasana, you can use that as an alternative meditation pose. Sutra 22. Press the anus firmly with the ankles in opposite directions and sit well poised. This is Kurmasana, according to the yogins. You see the drawing there? This is an extreme forward bend. You have a seated forward bend, which will be on the schedule soon, which is a little bit more advanced version of the forward bends that we now do standing. But if you put your arms under your legs and you then, if you follow the instructions, you push your heels forward and your buttocks back, your legs push your arms down, which forces a very intense forward bend. If you're relatively flexible, this should not be very difficult and maybe even very satisfying, because if you're very flexible, a normal forward bend without pressure doesn't cost much effort. And adding this extra dimension to the pose in the form of Kurmasana, which means tortoise, a turtle pose, just you can feel the increased intensity as a result of that. Experiment a little bit with it. If it's too hard or even impossible, just focus on the forward bends as we have them so far. 23. Assuming the Padmasana, insert the hands between the thighs and the knees, planting them firmly on the ground, rise in the air. This is Kukuttasana. Kukutta is a rooster. This is the notorious rooster pose, which is followed by 24, which is a variation. Assuming the Kukuttasana posture, wind the arms around the neck and lie on the back like a tortoise. This is called Uttana Kurma. So, to be able to do this, you need first of all to be able to sit in the lotus pose, and then you push your arms through and you end up balancing on your hands. Remember, I told you at some point that the most advanced poses in yoga all contain the element of balance, and almost all of those balances are on the hands. This is one of those. It's very complex with the lotus pose in combination with a hand balance. 25, taking hold of the toes with the hands, keep one arm stretched in front and draw the other up to the ear, as if drawing a bow. This is called Dhanurasana. That is not correct. Dhanurasana means bow. Dhanurasana is the pose that you see in the picture, the illustration, but the text gives other instructions. It says, taking hold of the toes with the hands, keep one arm stretched in front and draw the other up to the ear, as if drawing a bow. This is called Akarna Dhanurasana. Akarna A means at, Karna means ear, at the ear. Dhanura means bow, and it resembles drawing a bow before you shoot an arrow. That is not what the picture shows, but that's what the text describes. It goes as follows. You hold both big toes, like you do when you bend forward, but now you hold one leg and arm straight, while the other, you raise the leg and you pull the foot to the ear, Akarna. And this is exactly the motion when you are pulling the string of a bow before you shoot the arrow. (26), also classical yoga pose. Place the right foot at the base of the left thigh and the left foot outside the right knee. Take hold of the right foot by the left hand and the left foot by the right hand, and remain with the body turned around to the left. This is the asana described by Machendra. This pose is named after the first yogi, the first human being, Machendra, which tells us that this is an important pose. Now, why would this be an important pose? Spinal twists always stimulate all the chakras from the bottom up. So it's a very powerful pose to facilitate the rise of energy. It goes like this, and it is often done wrong, like Gomukhasana. The foot is pulled back, but the text is clear. It says, put your foot next to your knee. It doesn't say pull it back to the hip, next to the knee. Both buttocks should stay on the ground, the back straight before you do anything else, and then you twist. It's not described in the text, but we do this in 2 steps because most people do not have the flexibility in the beginning. We start with the first stage by embracing the knee, but keeping the back straight. So people have a tendency to hunch, but that diminishes the energetic effect of the pose. So you must keep your back straight and you You use the other hand on the floor. That will help to prop you up, stay straight, and you turn as far as you can. If you're comfortable at this stage, you can go to stage 2, where you use your arm as a lever, and it becomes the pose that is described in the text. So here you have a very intense torsion of the spine. No, you were correct. The first step is to embrace the knee, and if that's very comfortable, you go to the next step using your arm as a lever on the outside. That's it. Looks very easy on you. This Machendra, Sutra 27, which increases appetite. Forget about that text between square brackets. This Machendrasana, fanning the gastric fire, the ball of energy in your belly, is a weapon that destroys all the terrible diseases of the body. With daily practice, it arouses the Kundalini and it makes the moon steady in men. So when we read Sutra 26, I mentioned that this sutra is called Machendra, which is an indication that it is a special pose. And in Sutra 27, the author explains why. It fans gastric fire. It increases the vital energy production in the belly. And as a result of that, it destroys all the terrible diseases of the body. We become a lot healthier if we possess not just energy, but vital energy. With daily practice, with regular practice, it arouses the Kundalini, the energy rising up from the bottom to awaken consciousness in the crown chakra. And interestingly, it makes the moon steady in man. What does that mean? The moon is above the head, is responsible for the inflow of Shiva energy. Many men are lacking that, and it is responsible for those typically male characteristics that especially women hate. Toxic masculinity is what it is called. I have noticed that throughout all the years that all the men that come to this class have the moon steady. Toxic masculine males are not interested in something like yoga. They rather go to kickboxing or something that tough guys do. I had the moon steady since forever, and it made me different from my brothers and other men, and it makes me uncomfortable, just like many girls and women are, to communicate with those typically male men. Toxic masculinity is toxic for a reason. It's also the reason why, when I was younger, I felt not uncomfortable to communicate with gay men. But it always led them to think that I am gay, and then the next step comes, and then I have to say, stop, I'm sorry. I enjoy talking with you, but I'm not interested in anything more. The moon steady in men. This also means that yoga is much more important for men to be practiced than women, because women already have a heart. Yoga leads to men also having a heart, and the toxic masculinity melts away like snow before the sun. It's a very considerable aspect of yoga mentioned here in symbolical language that most people really do not understand. Sutra 28. Stretch out both legs on the ground without bending them, and having taken hold of the toes of the feet with the hands, place the forehead upon the knees and rest thus. This is Paschimottanasana. Paschimottanasana is that classical forward bend that you do sitting on the floor. We've done the standing versions, 3 together. Paschimottanasana will appear on the schedule soon. Very important, there is a mistranslation, is that you should rest in a pose. I do not know the Sanskrit text, but you never rest in a pose because it loses its activity, its effect when you relax in a pose. But it is misinterpretations like this that leads many yoga teachers while they teach to tell their members to say, relax in the pose. In the beginning, when I explained asana, I made a lot of effort to explain that asana is very special because you combine 2 totally opposite elements. One is the engagement, physical engagement. The other one, the opposing element, is that you stand still while remaining physically engaged. And that is not relaxing in a pose. It means steadying yourself in a pose. Patanjali says about asana that it is sukham and stiram. And there you have that contradiction. Because sukham means easy, like sukhasana, easy. So you have to be comfortable in a way. That means that you don't push too hard until you end up in pain or tearing muscles. You must know how far you can go. But once you are there, you must stay put, engaged. And that is stiram. Stiram is straightness. Sukham and stiram. Easy but straight. Means that you stay engaged and that you maintain that posture, because that is what asana means, standing still. Standing still engagement. And what you see here also is that the first couple of asanas, there was only one sutra, but starting with Matsyendrasana, he adds an extra sutra. He spends more text to explain about the pose, which is an indication that it is more significant compared to the ones that he used only one sutra to explain. Sutra 29 is the second sutra that explains the effects of Paschimottanasana. This most excellent of all asanas, Paschimottana, makes the energy flow through Sushumna, stimulates the gastric fire, makes the loins lean, and removes all diseases of men. Makes the energy flow through Sushumna. That is the third channel. That is why this is a significant pose, and he feels the need to dedicate an extra sutra to this explanation of Paschimottanasana. You remember Sushumna is the third channel. It is the channel through which Kundalini energy rises up to the higher chakras. And also this one, like Matsyendrasana, it stimulates the gastric fire, the fire in the belly that generates vital energy. It makes the loins lean, flexibility in and around the hips, and it removes all diseases of men. I don't know which diseases those are, but the moon not being steady is not a physical disease, but it's actually a psychological or a mental issue that can be considered among those things that are being corrected by this, and maybe some other typical male diseases. 30, plant the hands firmly on the ground and support the elbows on the sides of the navel. Raised in an elevated posture in the air, like a rod. This position they call Mayurasana. Now, we have done the fire poses. Mayurasana is actually the ultimate fire pose, because you're balancing on your Manipura chakra, on your belly. Maybe you've seen the illustration. It's a little bit intimidating, but it's easier than you think. First time it will not be possible to succeed for most people. If you try a couple of times, like I did 40 years ago, try a couple of times and you'll find out that you're able to actually do it. It goes like this. You place your hands a little bit apart, then you join your elbows and you rest on your elbows with your belly. You have to hunch your back. Then you find balance and you straighten like a rod, as the text indicates. So it's a huge Manipura exercise. You can try it out, or you can, I think you want to try it. Yeah?
Wow. Your wrist. My body wanted to fly before I was ready.
Yeah.
Your wrist alignment, I feel with the elbows and the wrist.
So
If your wrist
first just simply try to balance.
Yeah, that's the hardest.
While the legs are still bent, and once you're balanced, you slowly straighten your legs back. But while your legs go back, your upper body must come forward, so your arms kind of straighten a little bit.
Will you teach us how to get into the asanas? Because I mean, the asanas are not there to just practice on your own.
Say again?
Will you teach us how to get into the asana and how to get the body ready to
This
the
one?
asana? Any asana. I mean, any asana needs warm-up of muscles. I mean,
No.
yeah.
Yoga has no warm-up. Because there is no warm-up in yoga, because asana is not about physical performance. You do what you can at the condition that your body is in at that moment. And in the morning your body is a little bit stiffer because it's just waking up. In the evening it's a little bit warmer, so it's more flexible. There is no...
So if she falls over and her wrist cracks, that's because
Your body was not ready.
That
the body
won't...
wasn't ready, probably, right? And
That-
she
that
decided
won't-
to get into it.
No, that means that you have committed violence.
So
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking
You must,
But that's what
you
I'm
must
asking you. Isn't
follow
that-
your feeling. Listen, this pose is not on the schedule at this moment. It is on the schedule in the advanced course, so when we come to that, we will go through the details. Yeah?
Question about the pose.
Yeah.
Is it normal that if I want to balance my legs, I actually naturally, automatically fall, my body goes forward? Is it because the arms are not in the right place, or is it just the strength that is lacking?
No, but have you done it before, or is it the first time today? Yeah, it's a matter of getting used to, becoming familiar with it, because it's quite an intense pose, requires quite some strength, and it has this balancing element that makes things much more complicated. But that's the fun, just playing with it, trying it out, and eventually being impressed with what you actually pulled off there. (31) The Mayurasana cures. Mayura is a peacock, by the way. The Mayurasana cures quickly all diseases like gulma, udara, and other stomach diseases, etc., and overcomes the imbalance of the humors, namely Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. It reduces to ashes all food indiscriminately taken, kindles the gastric fire, and causes to be digested even the Kalakuta. Well, it's clear that this it affects digestion. There is a huge stimulation to the belly area. A text like this that claims that it even destroys the terrible poison like Kalakuta is the reason why there are yogis who indeed ingest a certain amount of poison that would be deadly for unconditioned people, untrained people, and it doesn't affect them really. This is not to show off, but it is to prove that they are, in fact, yogis. 32. Lying on the back on the ground like a corpse is savasana. Savasana removes fatigue caused by the other asanas, and it induces repose of the mind. Good. Questions? We will continue reading in the second session, starting from Sutra 33. Okay, let's have a short break.